Welcome, and thank you for downloading this week Take Aim Outdoors, the Bow Hunters Podcast. Whitetail hunting stories, tips, and gears from across country. And now, here is your host, Brandon Hammonds.
Okay, boys and girls, we are live, brand new episode, Take Aim Outdoor Podcast. Excited to have another show done and out to you guys, and excited to hang out with this guy for the next little while, Jason Syens from White Knuckle Production, White Knuckle Podcast. How's it going, Jason?
Good, Brandon. How are you?
Not bad, man. I know we just kind of got to do a podcast together, but was excited to kind of ask if you were available to do another one, because we kind of have some, very similar situations with Michigan and Wisconsin, and luckily for me, you said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun doing the show that we did do, and I think there's probably a lot of similarities in terms of even the way we hunt, but the obstacles that we run into while hunting, I guess, would be a good way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, give me a little background just, for all the listeners. I mean, Wisconsin is a very big, even draw to non-residents. So give us a little background on some of the seasons, and because I know you guys kind of have a bigger deer season just like Michigan does, which I'll call it liberal. So give us a little rundown on just how exactly Wisconsin works.
So typically right around the 15th of September, which happens to be my birthday, is the opener, whatever Saturday is closest to that. I think last year it may have even been on the 12th or 13th. But the archery season opens then. I believe it's the second weekend or first weekend in October. During the archery season, they have the youth firearm season, which goes for a Saturday and a Sunday. So, not a huge deal, but as a bow hunter, you're wearing blaze orange and dealing with the pressure. And then that ends. And depending upon what year it is and depending upon what legislature is, what elected people are down in Madison, we could have a couple different scenarios. I've dealt with several over the last few years, one of which is a doe-only hunt. Believe it or not, that started somewhere around the 20th and ended around the 25th, 26th, something like that. Typically, a lot of the schools let out in Wisconsin for either the second to last weekend or the last weekend, again, depending on how the calendar falls, of October, and they would have a 2-day doe-only hunt, which, again, takes, the bow hunting out of the game. Not that it does when the youth season is on, but you could potentially be shut down for a couple of days in that crucial time that we all, love to start getting out there. And then it runs all the way up until this last year, till January 8th. Of course, in there is the 9-day gun season, which is in and around the week of Thanksgiving, followed up by a 7-day muzzleloader season that ends on I believe it's a Wednesday. Maybe it's even a 9-day muzzleloader season now. That would make more sense. That muzzleloader season ends on a Wednesday, only to be reopened Thursday by a doe-only hunt for 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then from there on out, you go all the way up till Christmas Eve, which then there's another rifle hunt that goes till January 1st, and then archery season until this last year, like I said, until the 8th. So, yeah, it's pretty liberal.
Yeah, it's big. It reminds me a lot of Michigan. Same sort of scenario. We have a early season doe, early youth season, early veteran season, and that's all in September. But we don't, unlike you guys, we don't have a regular archery season that opens September 15th, kind of like you in Missouri. we don't open till October 1st unless you're doing the youth season, which is a gun season, or the veteran season, which is a gun season as well, and the early doe. So it's quite a bit of gun pressure before, October even hits, which makes it, unfortunate for us bow hunters. Then October's pretty quiet, and then November 15th is our gun. Goes for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks. And then, and then the very next day is a 10-day muzzleloader season. And then we have a late doe season pretty much the rest of December. So once gun hits, it's basically, we're in the shotgun-only zone anyways, or muzzleloader. So basically we have 45 days of gun no matter which way you look at it. So,
oh my. Yeah,
it's pretty brutal. But getting back to Wisconsin, what part of the state are you in, Jason?
I'm around the Dells, let's call it, south central. The land that I owned up until 3 years ago. I ended up selling it back to the guy that I bought it from. Long story, we don't have time for that one. But I still hunt there. I retained hunting rights for 5 years, which is the northeastern part of the county of Columbia. And, it's good hunting. But again, there's lots of pressure like we talked about on the last show. It's just pressure. And oftentimes, I guess one of my biggest frustrations in, getting as involved in white knuckle as I have, especially lately, is that, I listen to these folks talk about their techniques and their tactics, and they're great, but I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like I could employ all of those things. Probably the biggest thing that I've learned is staying out of that area until it's absolutely right, like we talked about on the last podcast. But, all those tactics and stuff that other folks use, it seems like 9 out of 10 times, and I know I sound like a whiny baby, but you can throw that stuff out the window when it comes to hunting where I hunt, just because it boils down to pressure. And that's the great unknown. I don't know who's going to be where at what time, and the same goes for them and me.
No, I hear you exactly. There's, some people are just very fortunate, that, if you get to live on a piece of land, you can kind of, landscape it towards your deer hunting. And for some of us that just have, leases, permission, there's so many things like we kind of talked about, Jason, that you just can't do. I can't do fruit plots. My farmers take up every solid inch of open space. So there's just so many things, like you said, not sound like a whiny baby, just those things just don't relate to me because I can't do it at all. Right. But one thing, like we, again, talked about in the last episode, was really just staying out of a piece of property till it's the right time. But I think there's a little more to go along with that, and that is, probably with your case too, Jason, is knowing your piece of property, and not just knowing it in the sense that it's a big rectangle and it's 40 acres. Knowing every square inch between that road and the next 3 roads over, and sure, knowing your neighbors and stuff like that. So give us a little rundown, Jason, on some of the obstacles, or situations with your hunting property. What exactly is it like, and kind of draw us a picture.
So when I bought the farm, I purchased it from my 4th grade Sunday school teacher for really a song and a dance. He gave me a great deal, and which is why I ended up selling it back to him. So it consisted of, let's see here, just about 90 acres, and all of that was cover and or canary reed grass. I'd say 20 acres of it was canary reed grass. The property was severed 1/3 to 2/3, so 1/3 of it was north of a piece of railroad tracks that severed the property, and then there was marsh and timber and a mix of stuff. So that was the cover. In addition to that, he was kind enough to kind of give the same kind of deal to a young man that wanted to farm. So that gentleman took over the farming portion of it, which is in amongst the land that I owned. So there was all kinds of crop fields, of course, that I could hunt. So the whole property is probably 200 acres, which is a lot for that part of the world. The property lays, at least the property that I hunt the most, or the part of the property that I hunt the most, lays in the shape of an L. The biggest part running north and south, and nearly as big running east and west. And I don't hunt that part that I talked of, we'll call it north of the railroad tracks, just because I don't hunt it very often, because it's nearly impossible to hunt, just because of the way the predominant wind is. And if you've watched any of White Knuckle's videos, you'll know that for 2 years I chased a deer we call him Slim Shady, Slim because he had virtually no spread whatsoever, but he was a brute of a deer. And after 2 years of chasing him, I was able to figure out that all he would do is bet up against the railroad tracks. Well, anybody who's walked on railroad tracks knows there's a bunch of rocks there. So he would bet against the railroad tracks. Anything that was going to come down the railroad tracks, he was going to hear walk through the rocks. Anything that was going to come at him through the marsh was going to make a ton of noise in the water, etc. And he would just lay on a little high spot in the marsh. So it's a hard place to hunt, just because of the predominant wind. And I didn't, often if there's a deer in there, I don't want to go in there and blow them out. So there's some constraints with things like that because of it. But there's just, like I said, there's not a ton of timber to hunt. But on any given day, on any given night, there could, like I said on the last podcast that we did, there could be 15 hunters there. So that probably is the biggest challenge for all 15 of us that hunt there. It's not just me, all 15 of us. And if one of us gets a trail camera picture, it's likely that 75% of us know about it, and we're all after the same deer, and we all have great intentions, or maybe there's a couple deer. So it can make for some trying times, and it's David and I would often take that first weekend in November off and just hunt the living daylights out of it, and by the end of it we wanted to shoot each other, because it can be downright frustrating, because you spent the entire day because you had the best information that this buck was using, this area, and you spent the entire day in a particular stand because you'd gotten pictures, and only to find out when you were walking out that, you look at Facebook or whatever, and somebody posted a picture that they were sitting, of the sunset or something like that, and you recognize it, and you're like, well, that's, 100 yards from where I was at. The wind was blowing right at me. So, you know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Jason, is that... Now, when you're mentioning those kind of guys, that the other hunters, I should say, do they have permission on your piece, or how is that working? Like, are they just that close on the neighboring properties to you?
Yeah, they're that close. So even though the acreage that I mentioned is, if you took a square and you cut out, the top right-hand part of that square and said that's my square, all of the cover is, if I was in that top right-hand square of 4 squares, right? You following me? All my cover would be in the bottom left-hand corner of my square. So all of the stuff on the top right-hand corner of my square is crop field. So that leaves me on the interior of the property up against, in many cases, less than 100 yards from a property line. I would venture to guess that there is less than 30% of my stands are within 100 yards or less of a boundary. just because of geographically how it lays. And there's not enough cover in the area for anyone that hunts that area to not say the same thing. So I have a pretty good relationship with my neighbors. One of them, he has the crop fields all along my timber. And I've always said to him, you know what, if there's something in the timber that you see and you want to shoot and it's a clear ethical shot, or you want to put a tree stand that just happens to be right on my side of the fence, then go ahead, and so we've been good about that, and I do the same to them. I've never shot a deer out of their field, but I certainly would have had I have gotten the chance. So again, we all work together, but it just makes it tough on all of us. So yeah, these guys all have permission. Back to your original question, these folks all have permission. There's the property that I referenced that I hunt, and then in between me and the next larger property is a 10-acre piece that runs the entire length east to west of my property. The property that I can hunt. So now you've got someone who has 10 acres that they have to access by four-wheeler, and they have to take a four-wheeler through, a lot of good cover to get to their cover. All of their cover is bedding cover, so it becomes a bit of a nightmare at times. So
yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, so you're pushing deer out with that ATV basically out of good cover, which is pressure.
Well, and there's one thing, yeah, you're absolutely right, and there's one thing that I want to point out. We often hear so many people say, lack of intrusion, lack of intrusion, lack of intrusion, lack of intrusion. Well, there's different kinds of intrusion. I believe that a deer knows the difference between when it's, someone's trying to kill it and when there's something, non-threatening in its world. And that's, a four-wheeler. The gentleman now that owns the land that I hunt on, he loves to go for ATV rides. He's got a side-by-side, and he goes for ATV rides. And then in the fall, he goes for walks. And Elvis, the deer that I killed 2 years ago, I have a trail camera picture of him standing there on a logging road 5 minutes after the fellow who owns the land had walked through the interior of the property. I got a trail camera picture of both of them, and he's just like Elvis is standing there watching up the hill where this guy had just walked 5 minutes ago. So, as much as we talk about intrusion, I think there's different kinds of intrusion, and you just have to learn to limit that. And I think that's one of the tactics that I've taken away from all of the different interviews that I've done that I'm going to employ this year that I haven't employed in the past. Like, it sounds like you're pretty stringent on when you go or strict on when you go to your property, and I just haven't been because I wanted to hunt.
Right. No, which is understandable, and like I said, I'm the first to say I've made that mistake for years and years and years, and it took a lot of, call it self-reflection to try to figure out, where and what are my weaknesses, what could I be doing wrong. Just like you, Jason, November 15th comes, I got a dentist that comes to hunt this property that I have permission on. I got 2 nephews and their boys, even though they sit together. So basically, I have to, get that job done between October 1st and November 14th, or it's pretty much over. Late season, I'm not saying you can't do it. I did kill a deer this year, December 5th, but man, that's unheard of. First time I've ever done that with bow gear in December, to be honest. It's very hard. So that's definitely not the norm, and usually it's over with, come the 15th. So yeah, to get back to your statement, that was the one thing, kind of like I said, just doing self-reflection on do's and don'ts, and that was the one big thing I said, that I got to actually cut down my hunting time. As much as I like it, I got to cut it down. So at least that's cool that, you're kind of recognizing that, and, you're going to take the steps forward now to change that.
Yeah, I am, because, and I want to, if there's one thing that I've learned in doing these podcasts and becoming more involved in the business is that, we have to be careful. We have a job or a duty, I would call it, to be careful in, what we're saying. It's your personal choice to not go and hunt the land because your goal that you set for yourself is to kill a mature deer. And many people, I think, they just want to go out and enjoy that, but at the same time they want to kill a big deer, and sometimes the two just don't go together, right?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It does.
Yeah.
So
there's.
Go ahead, Jason.
When I talk about our responsibility, I think, we have a responsibility to point that out to people. More often than not, those two don't go hand in hand. So, take the good with the bad and make a decision of how much you want to enjoy your time in a tree, or how badly do you want to kill a mature animal, and then, how likely is it, and on and on and on. I think as an industry, we've, largely portrayed, success as a deer hunter as being, killing a 180 and, managing a herd, or managing a property like, you see on some of the bigger TV shows. And that's just not realistic for a lot of people. And I caution anybody, but, before you make that choice, to not enjoy it and wean yourself off of going and sitting in the tree on opening night like you're used to doing, like I'm used to doing the last 15 years, think long and hard about that and make sure that your hunt is your hunt and nobody else's, and that you evaluate what it is that, how important is it to kill a mature deer, and then how reasonable is that expectation, and then, how much are you willing to give up to actually do that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many topics, and like you said, Jason, so many videos and TV shows. I mean, it had me even at one point, 10 years ago going, why aren't I killing 150s in Michigan?
Right.
That stuff doesn't happen. So you really got to find that happy medium, and for lack of a better term, don't believe all the hype. Find what you're capable, what your property's capable of. Because I'm the first to swear to God, first to tell you, or tell anybody, if you don't have big deer, you can't kill big deer. And sometimes that's a slap in the face, but you really have to know your property. Either you have them or you don't. Either you're doing the work to find out you have them or you don't. But in reality, just like Jason's saying, is you need to be very honest with yourself about your approach and what you want to do and what you want to get out of the sport.
Well, that's exactly
it.
right. Because, a great example is last year. I think in many ways I ruined David's season and mine because, I had so many trail cameras out and did such a good job of monitoring them and not checking them as often as I would, and had some cellular cameras, etc. And I just didn't get a picture of a deer that I, again, coming off of shooting Elvis the year before in the upper 150s, there wasn't a deer that I felt like I could go out there and not that none of the deer that were out there were good enough for me. It's just that I felt like I wasn't giving the other people that hunt in the same area a fair, or not a fair chance, but, I felt like it would be irresponsible of me to go out and kill something right away again. So, both of us went into that season, knowing there probably isn't a deer in the area that either of us would shoot. So we did things half-heartedly and thus ended up not really enjoying ourselves. And I think those are the things that you need to be aware of that can happen,
Yeah, absolutely. That's happened to me, and it kind of takes some steam out of you as well, and it will make you, kind of question, like, what the heck am I doing all this for? So, if you start off the right way and keep that task from the get-go with the same goals, you shouldn't have that burnt out feeling or any kind of being upset with yourself. I mean, you should be able to get through the season, achieve your goals, and like you said, by all means, if you got 110-inch deer and that's your top end, I mean, that's what you should be hunting for, and you should hunt to enjoy it and try to achieve that goal of shooting a 110-inch deer. Because I know tons of places in Michigan where that's a freaking giant, you know. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's a giant in a lot of states, to be honest, you know.
And that's a respectable deer in my eyes just about anywhere. But you know, in our area, you know, people are guilty of it. Social media is guilty of it. You know, somebody goes and shoots that deer and they're excited and they put in all the work and they did this and they did that and they did everything right and they're jacked up and they go ahead and post a picture on Facebook and then some knothead has to say that would have been a nice deer next year. I think that's where, you know, we all have to just take a step back and look at things for what they are. Like you said, if they're not there, you're not going to kill them, and either lower your standards or do something different. So David and I decided this year we're going to do something different. If there's not a deer out there that we feel is what we're going to go after, then we're going to go after public land deer, and then our sights are really going to drop, or our standards rather are really going to drop, maybe to like a 90-inch. No, I'm just kidding, but you know, we're going to do
no, but I understand. Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to have fun, because we didn't have fun last year, and it just about. It took a lot of wind out of our sails.
Yeah, it does. I mean, situations like that will just drain you. And now, Jason, does this have anything to do? I know we kind of just talked offline, but you're moving, and how's that situation working out? I mean, are you going to be completely committed to a brand new piece of property this year, or how's it looking for you?
Yeah, you know, strange things happen and funny things happen, and sometimes, and I just happen to be talking to one of my bank reps, and he's down in, I believe he's in South Carolina, and, excuse me, we got to talking. He said, "Oh, you're a Wisconsin boy." I said, "Yeah," and we, you know, after we got through the, you know, I know this person and that person, he mentioned that he had some hunting ground, and I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah." You know, as we're on the phone, I think he emailed me or texted me a picture, and I'm like, "Whoa," of the deer that he shot during the rifle season. And he said, you know, that he just comes every year for a couple days, and I just happened to say, "Boy, I'd love to lease some land over in that part of the world, southwest Wisconsin." And he's like, "Well, I'll lease you the land." And I said, "Okay," because I don't gun hunt anymore, and my boys do, but you know, I'll take them where I've already got permission to go, and we'll just. And he said, "You know, we'll bow hunt this." And I said, "There's going to be, you know, my partner Dave and I, and that'll be it." And he's like, "Yeah, great." So so that happened, and that's about an hour from here. And then, as luck would have it, the house that we're living in, we sold our house last year. We rented a house for a year, what we thought was going to be a year. The gentleman's going to sell it that owns it. We don't want to buy it, so we're moving. And it just so happens that we're moving 20 miles to the west, which is 20 miles closer to that land, and a whole bunch of public land over in that area. So yeah, we'll be moving to the Wisconsin Dells in June. So
cool.
Yeah, it's going to change things drastically. So I'm really looking forward to this year. David's looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. I'm going to go look at the property after I hang up with you today.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my truck and drive over there and look at it.
That's awesome. I know it's so funny, but sometimes just getting a new piece of ground to walk on and getting permission on another piece, whether it's permission or lease or, you know, agreement, man, it's just enough to get you recharged and super excited about the hopes and possibilities. It's one of my favorite things to do, man. I loved it. I love to see new properties. It just kind of fires me up.
Absolutely.
So do you know exactly, Jason, have you done the whole, I'm sure you have, Google Earth thing and figured out some, you know, pinch points and some elevation changes, or mapped out the property a little bit? Yeah. How's it look?
Like 100 times. It's you know, it's a small piece, but it's got everything. It's got it's part of a family farm that got split up between brothers and sisters, and this is his portion. And the brothers, as it sounds, the brothers and sisters, they all gun hunt. It doesn't sound like anybody bull hunts. So it's a big farm. I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 acres. So I'll be able to hunt a small piece of that, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, everything sets up kind of nice. There's a small set of crop fields. The timber that's there hooks up to the big timber. So I gotta believe that there's going to be some transition areas with deer coming out of that big timber to go into those crop fields at night. That it should be just the right situation.
Oh man, that's awesome, especially after what you said last year. So I'm super excited for you. That is like I said, nothing more exciting than be able to kind of just get rejuvenated and have new aspirations on a new piece of ground. It's just super exciting.
Yeah, there's absolutely no substitute for owning your own ground and being able to mess around on it. I'd say 80% of the fun of hunting for me was just all the management, planting thousands of trees and food plots and all that stuff. But it is going to be fun to have just a different challenge in different country. The terrain that I hunted before was largely flat. There's a few, what I call a hill. Some people might look at me and laugh, but now I'm going to be in bluff country. So there's literally some big ups and big downs. So it should be a ton of fun. I won't be able to do the things that I'm used to doing to manipulate the deer. Like one of the best tactics that I've ever employed was just through timber stand improvement and taking out invasive species and what have you, and then stacking the trees that I've cut down. They're relatively short, 6-8 feet tall. I stack those in a manner in which it will push the deer by my stand, especially during the rut. And you'll see in one of our upcoming episodes here of the White Knuckle Web Show where David lets an absolute beautiful 8-pointer that I couldn't really believe he let it go, but he still let it go nonetheless. That just followed that trail as a result of me being able to stack up that timber. So that's the way he had to come. Yeah,
that is something I kind of touched on earlier in the show about when you don't own a piece and you're limited to so many options on what you can do. But I guess that goes back to just being thankful to having a place to hunt and then trying to figure out your options from there, which I'm sure you guys are going to be able to do just fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, Jason, I got a meeting I got to attend and I got to get ready for, but I would love to have you back on, later this year and kind of get an update on maybe scouting and then get an update during hunting season as well, if you're down for that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to talk about, when I talk tactics with Todd and whomever else, even you. Sometimes I feel like the little kid in the room because I'm the things that I employ aren't anywhere nearly as rooted in biology or anything like that as they are in just maybe common sense. A lot of what I do is physical stuff, like I said, contouring timber and stuff like that. And I'd like to talk about some of that stuff because I've found that to be very useful. And it's not that I've never killed big deer. I've killed some decent deer in very hard to manage, or rather hard to kill deer places, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to get some insight because, like I said, that's one part of the game I've never been able to do. I can't just walk on the piece of ground and do a bunch of hinge cutting or brush piles and manipulating some of the wood, so to speak. So, yeah, we definitely can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks for having me, and anytime, just let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody, as you know, every Tuesday we are live on podbros.com, outdoor podcast channel, where you can get one show every single day, 2 shows sometimes, 7 days a week. So make sure you check out Outdoor Podcast channel and all the varieties of shows we have over there. And Jason, let everybody know where they can find you and White Knuckle as well.
Well, any day now you're going to be able to find us at whiteknuckleproductions.com. You can certainly go to that website now, but it's old and it's painful, so I wouldn't recommend it. But I would say within the next 72 hours, we will have an all brand new website. Go there and check it out. We're going to be hosting a film school down in Illinois this year. Kyle and myself and Todd will be there, possibly one surprise guest who's been in the business a long, long time and has filmed for a couple that every one of you who's listening will know. So we've got some exciting things coming up. So it's whiteknuckleproductions.com.
Jason, when is the film school?
June 17th. It's just going to be one day. And Kyle is going to cover everything that you could possibly need to know about running a camera. I would imagine it's going to be very similar to what I attended back in 2008. It's just that things are so much more technical now. And in many ways, they're so much easier. None of us are dealing with a GL2 or whatever the Sony was.
Yeah, GL2 and PD170. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would.
Dealing with that.
I'll have to reach out to you because I'd like to get some details. Maybe I can make it down for that. That would be cool.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it sounds good. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you. Bye now.